Hello, good evening, and welcome. WarrenThornton.com. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the show. As always, it is Tweedy Tuesday. I am joined by the wonderful James Tweedy from Sputnik. Good evening, James. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Warren. How are you?
Absolutely fine. I haven't seen you for a week. What's happened that's caught your mind?
Well, I don't know. A big war started somewhere, didn't it? I think.
Yeah. Um, your initial thoughts. I mean, we've had it's been a week since I've seen you. We've had the Ayatollah die. We've had Trump making all sorts of statements. We've had Iran hit very, very hard. Iran have responded by hitting the Gulf states. Your overall thoughts at the moment. Obviously, it hasn't resulted in any sort of overthrow of the government so far. Your thoughts first of all. First of all, in hitting Iran, would you think that that was the way to go? Did you? I mean, we were expecting it. We even predicted the date that it would start. Your overall thoughts where we are so far into what this is the third or fourth day of this lunacy?
Okay. I don't know why they thought that killing Ayatollah Khamenei was going to be a great victory or something. The guy stayed in his house and didn't try to seek shelter, and he knew that they would bomb his house.
Yeah.
So, and he's 86 years old, so they just turned him into a martyr. And he knew that would happen. Possibly the man knew he wasn't, maybe he thought he wasn't going to live very long anyway. I don't know. Maybe he had some bad news from the doctor. But, and obviously that didn't, that did not win them the war, because he's not the guy who's in charge of, he's not the guy running the government,
No.
the civilian government, and he's not the guy running the armed forces, right? I don't know why they thought that would make any difference at all. And then, whatever they think they've achieved, Iran is still fighting back and doing so in ways which are, let's say, asymmetrical and fairly effectively as well. I mean, they've caused serious damage to US bases all around Iran, which I said before are a threat to Iran, but Iran is a threat to them. They're a hostage to fortune because Iran can hit them just as much as they can hit Iran, right? And Iran did hit them, and US service people, Air Force airmen or sailors or whatever have been killed. So it hasn't, and I think it's too early to tell who's going to win, but I can't see what the plan is. And when you're bombing, the airport the civilian airport outside Tehran, and you're bombing police stations, and you're just bombing random things, really.
Yeah.
Then what is the plan? How is that winning the war? How is that achieving? What are the aims, and how is it achieving them? None of that is really clear.
Well, the plan's changed a lot of times. We'll get into it a little bit, but there is a definite clock ticker here, and Trump has come out and very much tried to address this, James, where he's sort of going, "Oh no, we'll do this." We've got huge stockpiles of this. Have a look.
You know, when I give away ammunition, everybody pays for it. The European Union's paying for it. Then they can do what they want with it, but they are giving it, let's say, to Ukraine, and it's okay. But we gave away a lot of high-end, but we have plenty. But we have unlimited middle and upper ammunition, which is really what we're using in this war. And we have really an unlimited supply. We also have a lot of the very high-end stored in different countries throughout the world. With this, we're literally storing it there, which is actually something that I insisted on in my first term. I rebuilt.
So there's a couple of things that disprove that, James. First of all, Zelensky's a big loser in this because they're taking all his Patriot missiles from Ukraine and they're transferring them over to the Middle East. And of course, they've also taken them from South Korea as well. So they're gathering all these weapons from the people that actually wanted to have them, to hold them. And of course, he's saying about the unlimited supply of stockpiles. Let's get into that a little bit because it's not strictly true. And we've had a little look at this. Now, they have been firing off lots of these missiles. Let's have a look. This is in the UAE.
Allah.
So there we go. So James, I'm just going to walk you through what our guy has told us because we've got a guy who deals in weapons. It's never nice to be sort of too close to people who work for Lockheed Martin, but let's put it this way: he's able to give us all sorts of information. So let's run. I'll just run you through the figures, and then you can give your take on this. The nonsense that Trump is coming out with, he says, is utter nonsense. He fired his chief of staff because he obviously said stockpiles are very low. So Lockheed Martin, which makes the PAC-3 interceptor missile for the system, said in March 2025 that it boosted capacity by 1/3 and produced more than 500 missiles last year. 3 years earlier, it was making 300 a year, and by 2027, it plans to raise output to 650 annually. It's the output for that. Raytheon also produces missiles for the Patriot system. The company makes a little more than 200 PAC-2 missile systems a year. Now, there are 400 THAAD missile systems a year that come with a package of 48 rockets. They can fire 8 rockets at a time. Patriots can fire 50 if you've got the full package. Now, the THAAD missile system is currently capable of producing up to 100 missiles per year. However, there are discussions about increasing production to meet the future demographic. Now, there are 19,200 THAAD rockets that have currently been made. That makes 1,371 rockets. If you put them in all the 14 bases that have been hit, and you say that's their yearly supply, that leaves three and 3/4, we'll say 4 missiles per day, THAAD rocket missiles that they can use. That's if you even them out across just those 14 bases, not in other parts of the world. Now, there are 30,000 Patriot missiles around the world. If you were to give them to all the 14 bases, that would leave them 2,142 missiles.
Yeah, they won't be spread out evenly. The point is, there's not a limitless number of anything.
Yeah,
there isn't a limitless quantity of anything, and you have to save some.
Yeah, let me just finish on this, and then you can go in. So that leaves 2,142 missiles per year. So that would average out at 6 per base per day. Now, the cost of a THAAD missile system is 23 billion plus 2.4 billion in rockets. Cost of the Patriot system fully loaded is 1.1 billion, and for a fully loaded system, and the rockets are 4 million a time. The Patriot missile systems are 1,100 around the world. They've been in production since 1980. And the THAAD missile system was made, it started going on production line in 2008, and there are approximately 1,000 of those around the world, James. I mean, this is all from our guy. But that's not a lot. When you're talking about 4 or 6 missiles, even if they've got a ton, all the Arab states are starting to panic a bit because Oman have about 4 weeks worth left, and and a couple of other states say they've only got a week's worth left, because they're firing them off like it's the the 5th of November. So James, your thoughts on all this? I know they're not going to be even.
Well,
That's just
Qatar is saying that that's not the case, blah blah blah. But the point is that there is not an infinite supply of these things. The prices of them it's peanuts. I mean, the US, the Pentagon has an annual budget of about 1 trillion a year, so it's peanuts. But the problem is that it's not that. The problem is that they are at low rate production and they produce finite numbers of them.
Yes,
They get the way that things work in the US is that although the US Congress does not is not a parliament, it's not a proper parliament. It doesn't make laws or anything meaningful like that. But it does do the thing that the parliament shouldn't necessarily be doing, which is controlling the budget, the government budget. And so you can't buy anything for the army without going through Congress for weeks on end.
Yeah.
And so you basically get you get voted a certain amount of money to buy the thing, and you buy that many of them, and you never buy any more, and the production line shuts down. Basically, some of these things are probably, the missiles are still in production, and I think the launchers are still in production, partly because of foreign countries buying them.
They are.
Right? Yeah. That's probably the main reason that's keeping it going, because there are other customers. But anyway, I mean, the point is that you will eventually run out. Yes. And missiles that are in the, if they've got 5,000 or whatever missiles in the US, they're in the US. You've got to get them to the Middle East somehow. Yeah. When there's missiles landing all over your air bases, so how are you going to do that? And you can't sail through the Straits of Hormuz. So what are you going to do? So these are all the problems,
Yes.
All sorts of problems.
Yes.
And you have to. They will want to keep a certain number in reserve, just in case of. Well, they don't think anyone's going to attack the USA. That's not going to happen.
No.
Canada and Mexico are not going to invade the USA, but they want to keep a certain number in reserve as a baseline stock for whatever the next war they want to fight. Right?
Taiwan. Yeah.
Or whatever they want to do. But so they don't want to come to the end of it. Yeah, like Taiwan. So they don't want to come to the end of this, and then the Chinese are looking at Taiwan and saying, "Well, you run out of missiles." So, things like that. So no, they don't. He's just talking. That's what Donald Trump does. He just talks off the cuff about things like that. And what was the other thing he said just now? He said that a couple of hours ago, he said that they're going to cut off all relations with Spain, but they're going to keep using bases in Spain, Spanish Air Force bases and naval bases for the war, even though Spain has said they're not going to. So you're not going to have any relations with Spain, but your forces are going to be using those bases against their will. How is that going to work? And you're not going to trade with Spain. Well, Spain will say, okay, you don't get the nice wine, and we don't get, I don't know, the kind of gas guzzling cars or something. I don't know, like what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense at all. It's just, so it's all crazy, you see. It's just talk. So there we go. They're going to run out of missiles sooner or later. The question is Iran going to run out of missiles and go and shoot at them first? Well, I mean, eventually they will, because they don't have an infinite number. But
they've got
how
about
many
80,
have they got?
They've got about 80,000 drones, and they got about. I asked the question of our Iranian And he said, yeah, they'd hit quite a lot of the launchers that were above ground, but they say they've got, or they are claiming they have around 80,000 drones, quite a few thousand missiles. And of course, that they are claiming that they've got still 1,700 launchers that are not above ground. Lee Williams.
I was just going to ask a question for people to actually
Yeah.
wake up and think about this. Who makes the quickest missiles? Is it North Korea, China, or Russia? Because I know they're all slow, as well as all the type of Europe and obviously the USA. So you obviously be able to explain that, Warren.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, there's no question that the Russia are on a war footing and everything else. I mean, it was in the stuff I was saying earlier. Lockheed Martin made 500 missiles last year. Raytheon produced 200. There's nobody else that makes the missiles for that system. They do that. Now there are, of course, the THAAD missile systems can fire 8 rockets at a time, and they're hoping to up production from 90 of those to 400. But 400 of those are not going to be a lot of use, James, is it?
There's a lot of things here. When the missiles, firing one anti-ballistic missile or one surface-to-air missile does not necessarily result in one shoot down. It results in a percentage chance, right?
It does, yeah.
And then it averages out. So maybe you fire 2 missiles. If you're lucky and the system is really good, you're firing 2 missiles for every target.
They're averaging, right? They're saying they're firing 4 for every drone.
Right, okay. Well, that's ridiculous because those drones are very slow, right?
Yeah.
I'd expect them to hit the drones pretty much, like almost 100% of the time. But, so like, and a certain number will get through, especially if the people firing them are clever and launch large waves of them at once, or they use different tactics, right?
Yes.
And so you will never shoot down everything. Some stuff will get through, and then what is it going to hit? There's the question. Is it going to hit something that's quite fragile, like an oil refinery, or a load of oil tanks, oil storage tanks, or something like that, or the big fuel storage tanks at an airport or a military airbase, blah blah blah, right? And can you stand that damage? You see, so it's all percentages. It's all and even if you got lots of them and you're firing and you've got lots of the missiles and lots of the launchers and blah blah blah, some of that stuff is going to get through, and as it goes on, you may start running out of missiles, and then you're going to have to make choices about which targets you shoot at. Do you let that missile hit? That missile's heading for the middle of the city, your capital city. But there aren't any military targets there. It's going to kill some people, but there aren't any military targets there. And there's another missile headed for your airbase. Which one do you shoot down? Do you preserve your armed forces at the expense of letting civilians get killed, or do you, or vice versa? And they're going to have to start making those choices, and they'll probably let the civilians get killed. So these are the things that are going on. So, and there's also the question of how much pain is each side prepared to take?
Yeah.
Right? Because for Iran or the Iranian government, the losing means the overthrow of their state, which they believe in ideologically, right?
Yes.
And which they consider to be, part of their national sovereignty, by the way. That's right. They would lose their national sovereignty. And they personally would be dragged through the street and murdered, as happened in Syria and Libya and other places, right? So what have they got to lose?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely
if they
right.
flatten Tehran, what have they got to lose? Exactly. At what point is this, is surrender a better option, right?
Let's
And
have a
then
look
for
at
the
this.
US, losing getting 100 men killed, let's say, or having one ship sunk,
Not good.
it is politically problematic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It becomes politically difficult. You know, we were only bombing them. They're saying it's not like Iraq. Everyone is saying it's not like Iraq, which is
Yep.
ominous, right? Of course, it's like Iraq. It's worse than Iraq, in fact. It's not like Iraq. We're just going to bomb them a bit and then go away and leave them alone. You can't even do that. What if they stop bombing Iran next week? That Iran says, well, you know, it's not over till we say it's over, and they keep bombing those US bases in the region. What do you do? Do you start bombing them again? You know, or do you evacuate the bases and keep them evacuated? Do you lose those bases? That's a possibility.
You've got pretty much no choice, haven't you? I mean, because you're just going to get absolutely clobbered, I would have thought.
Yeah, you have to make some sort of deal, but then everyone is saying they're not going to make a deal. I mean, they were negotiating. The US was negotiating with Iran, and then secretly planning to do this, and like they did last year. And the Iranians probably knew that was going to happen. And now the Iranians are saying, well, we're not going to make any more deals. We're not going to negotiate with the US.
I mean, what did we make of Trump put out feelers through Italy? And he did put out a back channel feeler through Italy because we know this for a fact. And the Iranians just told him, sod off, we're not negotiating. I mean, what did he expect? I mean, there's definitely a lack of common sense here, or a lack of an ability to understand that you're not going to be able to keep dropping bombs on people and getting away with it, James.
He just said very irrational things, really. He said that the new people in charge are willing to talk to me, like he just said that. And, you know, and obviously they hadn't got the memo about that one, had they? But there weren't any new people in charge. It's the same people in charge, right? But he thinks just because they killed the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, that there's a new government or something, right? And they killed a couple of other people. They killed the defense minister, maybe, and they killed the head of the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guards, right?
Yes.
And so they were already ready. This was out in the public domain that they had like sort of chains of succession for every important position set up. And all military units, you know, had been given orders to carry out if they totally lose communication with the government. Like if the entire government if they nuke Tehran, all the units have orders to carry out, you know, to retaliate, basically. And you know, everyone is told to basically make sure everyone knows who's in charge if you get killed, who succeeds you if you get killed, and who exceeds that one, you know, and so on, right? So they were more prepared for it this time than they were last year, because it all happened last year, didn't it? The same thing happened last year. So, and all sorts of other things. And then Trump is saying, oh, we want the people to rise up, and it's time for the people to rise up and make their country great again by going back to the monarchy. Thanks to Nigel Farage, by the way, for saying that constitutional monarchy is one of the options. In other words, it is the aim, that they're going to bring back the monarchy, right? That's the aim. So, did they rise up? No. Why didn't they rise up? Because they were told to rise up in January, and there was a month of rioting, and now that's over, and the ringleaders are in jail, and some of them are dead, and then they killed all those girls at school on the first day of the war on Saturday.
Yes.
And anyone who's now like goes out and protests against, and the country is under attack. The country is at war. And anyone who goes out and starts protesting against the government, saying, oh, I don't like it, I don't want to wear a hijab, is going to get beaten up by the rest of the population, aren't they? You know, I mean, I'm not trying to incite anything, but that's what it's going to be like. They're not going to have any. The government And the police and the army and all their supporters are not going to have any patience for that.
No, exactly that. And I'm with James there. By the way, I'm not telling James. I will say that James is not advocating that you go out and beat the living tar out of anybody who says I'm not happy with our government. But of course, the mood across the country. If the idea was to galvanise people to overthrow the government. And that was repeated everywhere, James, even while strikes were going on. So what it looks like, because obviously they've hit airport, they're hitting airports, they're hitting civilian centres now. This is Tehran airport. This is an airport in Tehran. They're hitting civilian areas now, so it seems as though Plan A didn't work. Plan B, Plan A always has been overthrow the government. That doesn't seem to have worked. Now we'll kill as many of the generals and blow up as many. That doesn't seem to have worked. Plan C seems to be let's terrorise the population and drop bombs on them, and it'll be and they'll finally give up and we'll take over and nick all the minerals. That doesn't seem to be working either, Joe, or is it?
You can. It seems a bit aimless, right? Have they run out of military targets to hit? Well, if they have, then something funny is going on because Iran is still shooting back.
Yeah.
So, are there no targets that are actually easy to hit? And maybe possibly that's the case. That all the obvious targets that were easy to hit have been hit. And it hasn't, or all the targets that they know about, all the locations that they know about, have already been hit. But that hasn't stopped the Iranian army from armed forces from being able to fight. Right? They're still fighting. They're still launching drones, and missiles. So now that they're going down the target list. What comes next? Oh, the airports and things like that. Alternatively, that was always the intention, that they would destroy the Iranian economy and the civilian government.
It was.
And there are reports of attacks on a nuclear power station, which is still being built, but it's partially operational, but still being built by about 600 Russians.
Yes.
And anything like that happens in another country. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, Ukraine. If anything like that happens in Ukraine, everyone's like, Russia wants to start a nuclear war, disaster and blah blah blah. But no one is making a fuss about it at all. No. And they've shut down. Apparently, they've shut down. The reports, the unconfirmed reports, are that they have shut down the Russian. Rosatom, the Russian nuclear energy company, who's in charge of the site, has shut the nuclear reactor down. So that is taking electricity offline in the country. So there's going to be power cuts and things like that. That it may be the aim that they totally destroy the national grid and the oil industry there and destroy the Iranian economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're not wrong. But let's get into this a little bit then, because we had this, and I've got to sort of go to this because this seems to be the mood that's going on. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's have a little listen. It's only a couple of minutes, but have a listen to this. Seems to be the various moods.
We have the president who, by the way, Megan, this really needs to be said. Donald Trump has said repeatedly on camera and in interviews, he doesn't think he's going to heaven. Well, I want to ask a question, a serious question. What is in his mind? What is his mental state? If he doesn't think he's going to heaven and he is a man towards the end, he's in the fourth quarter, he's towards the end of his life. How does that pan out for the rest of us when we have a president of the United States who doesn't think and is convinced he's not going to heaven? What does that mean his decision making is? He already said to the New York Post today that he doesn't care about the polling. He doesn't care about what the American people think, and he may put troops on the ground. He took this is going to be a few day war to now it's going to be maybe 4 weeks or more. I want to say, what is happening to the man that I supported, you supported, the man that denounced what happened in Iraq, the man that said no more foreign wars, no more regime change, promise it on the campaign. JD Vance promised it. Tulsi Gabbard promised it. All of them promised it. And we're a year in, and we're in another fucking war, and we've got American troops being killed. I think it's time for America to rip the Band-Aid off, and we need to have a serious conversation about what the fuck is happening to this country and who in the hell are these decisions being made for, and who is making these decisions.
And Marjorie Taylor Greene says the following about Donald Trump and Hegseth. Let's play it. And
Pete Hegseth said this morning, Megan, he said that we didn't start this war. But I hate to argue with the Secretary of the Department of War. America and Israel definitely started this war, and you can't lie that away to the American people. And so, you know how I feel right now? I am irate. I am furious about this. We are nearly $40 trillion in debt. How much is this war going to cost us? We have seen enough of our American troops dead and murdered for foreign countries. And now we've had 4 dead and murdered, just like you said, for Israel and for the Iranian people, not for the American people. And I don't want to see any more dead and murdered.
I mean, folks.
So there we are, James. Marjorie Taylor Greene pretty much laying in there. She's got a point, though, hasn't she? That's pretty based, isn't it? Because when you look at the opinion polls that are out there, Trump's ratings for this are going through the floor. Trump's attack on Iran, all adults, 27% in favour, 30% don't know. I never think that's quite right. Don't know. You know, you either do or you don't. If you go, well, I don't know, you shouldn't even be answering the question. Republicans, 55% in favour. Democrats, 7% in favour. Other 19% in favour. Overall, only 27% in favour. That's what, just above 1 in 4. That's not good, James.
Well, what's it not? Who's it not good for?
Trump.
I mean, he's not up for election again. They have this thing in the States where you're only allowed to be elected president twice. You know, if people
unless
want
they
to
change the rule.
Unless they change the rule. How are they going to change the rule? Do you have any idea how difficult it is?
I've got a thing here because I did check this out once. And I checked it out quite a while back. Now, you can run for office, but you can't serve more than 2 consecutive terms. So you can run again and become president under the actual ruling.
I don't know. I think, you know, he's not going to. He's too old.
No.
And he can't anyway. And then he's not. That's what he's saying. He's not worried about it because he doesn't need to get elected again. You see? Yeah. And that's how it always works. You get recording there.
No idea.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, what I'm going to say about this is, it always happens. You know, you get 2 types of president: the ones that serve 1 term and the ones that serve 2, right? And Obama had 2 terms, and George W. Bush had 2 terms, right? And then going back, and then Clinton had 2 terms, and Reagan had 2 terms, and it was only. So like most of them really have been elected to 2 terms unless they got assassinated or, you know, some other, or, you know, they were particularly unpopular, right? And the ones that serve 2 terms, as soon as they're elected into the 2nd term, everyone knows that in 4 years, as soon as they're sworn in 4 years' time, they're out of office, right? And you can just sort of wait for them to go. And if you want to make a deal about something that's going to happen in more than 4 years' time, right, then, you know, or is going to carry on more than 4 years' time, you're talking to the people around the president and in the other party there. You see, that's the whole point about that system. So Trump is on his way out already. right? As soon as he was in the door, he was on his way out. And the midterm elections don't matter for lots of reasons. One is the only reason they have those is precisely so that the party that won the elections, you know, when the congressional elections that happened at the same time as the presidential election, will then lose its majority and cannot legislate for anything, right? So then the president, the government becomes a double lame duck because the president is out on his way out and they can't legislate for anything, right? That always happens. That's the whole point of it, right?
Okay.
And then so he doesn't care. Nobody cares. And anyway, for years, for decades now, presidents have not been using Congress to govern. They haven't been using acts of Congress. Congress does not do anything except argue about the budget, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
they just issue executive orders, and then or they get the Supreme Court to do something. The Supreme Court has more power than the Congress, right?
Yeah.
So none of it matters.
Okay.
And Donald Trump says, "I'm not going to go to heaven." Well, you know, do you want a leader of your country who's a really nice guy, or do you want someone who's going to, you know, get things done? That's always the question. And he's probably just acknowledging that. He's not saying I'm evil, ha ha ha. You know, he's saying I'm going to do bad things as president. Which, in fact, it's almost impossible not to do that because there will be people like the Defense Department, which is not run by by elected politicians or the CIA, who are going to bring you things and tell you have to sign off on the orders to murder somebody.
Yep.
So that's how it always is.
Let's let Lee Williams and then Nillis in, and then I will ask you a question on that. Lee Williams and then Nillis.
First thing I'd like to say, I don't know if anybody knows this, is the 27% Americans going to be happy that the fuel price is going to be lovely, the price of their food and clothes, everything will stay the same. And remember, it's nothing to do with the UK. UK is not involved, so we'll be okay. The petrol won't go up, the diesel won't go up, and our food won't go up.
Already has.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Already has. Nillis. 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 All right. Nillis had his hand up. He's got it down again now. Nillis, if you want to talk, just jump in. So since we've gone there already, let's go to this then, because we've had the Straits of Hormuz are effectively closed, and of course Iran is saying that here's 6 of the tankers that have so far been hit in the Straits of Hormuz, and of course effectively nothing is moving through there, even though people are saying it's not closed. It's effectively closed. The price of oil futures is going up. It's gone up now to $82 a barrel from 61. And of course, this was something we were talking about, that once that does make a jump and you get that hockey stick graph going up, then you have a problem. Now, here we go. The hockey stick graph has already gone up. And the problem is, when we get this hockey stick go up and the prices go up, and they've started to go up already, it is a real problem getting the hockey stick to come down again. It does come down, James, but it doesn't come down quick.
Yeah, okay, that's gas for your cooker and your boiler, but it's I mean, and a lot of that comes from Qatar, but then there is a question about, a lot of it comes from the North Sea, and we, including in British parts of the North Sea. So there's a question about that. The gas market is already under stress because of sanctions on Russia and refusal to buy, basically an embargo, a refusal to buy gas from Russia. Okay. I always say that there's
France changed their mind on that already.
I always say that there's no unintended consequences. This is not an unintended consequence. So the question is, how does the US wanted this to happen, so how does the US benefit from it? if the US has got, well, okay, for one thing, a lot of the oil that comes from the Gulf and then, you know, on tankers through the Straits of Hormuz is going eastward to China. China is a major consumer of oil. So creating a situation where Iran closes the straits effectively hurts China. So that's actually helping Russia. It's helping the USA. It helps Russia too.
Oh, yeah.
Because Russia is a net exporter
Yes.
of oil, and the oil price is going up. But what about the USA? Is the USA a net exporter or importer? It tends to flip back and forth. But right now, it is controlling all the oil exports from Venezuela and is saying that anyone who wants to buy Venezuelan oil has to buy it through the US, including China. They said to China, they specifically said, Donald Trump specifically said that if China wants to buy Venezuelan oil, continue buying it, right, it must buy it through the USA. And now the price has gone up. So
yeah,
the USA benefits.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
You know, it may be politically difficult. You know, like the you know, people will grumble because they had to pay more to fill up their car, right? And if it goes on too long, it may, you know, it might become a serious issue.
Yeah.
But this is why I'm talking about the exit strategy, though, because where's, you know, and the whole plan, you know, where does it end? What is the end goal, and how they're going to get there before, you know, before the summer, let's say, or before next year, or before Donald Trump leaves office? There's the question.
Okay. Let's get into this then, because I think this is how can I put this? I've got to say I saw this and I thought I couldn't quite believe what I was watching, James.
I extend my earnest wishes for a swift and smooth recovery to all those who have been injured. You are in my thoughts and prayers during these challenging times. The U.S. stands with all of the children throughout the world. I hope soon.
And I thought, do excuse me, because I don't normally use bad language. I thought, do me a fucking favour. Your husband and various other, shall we say, entities bombed, and they've just done a boys' elementary school as well. Bombed an elementary school which resulted in the death of 171 children. And here's where I have a major problem, James. There are 69 of those children cannot be identified, so they have to have DNA for them to be able to identify which child they have lost. I mean, this is taking a piss, isn't it?
I thought it was a girls' primary school, but yeah, I mean,
girls' elementary school.
Yeah, well, primary, whatever. But you know, it's like they're just yeah, okay. But then I don't know why they decided that was a good optic, but they can do that, you know. And in fact, the people that they've chosen to as their UN representative in the past have been really more offensive than that, to be honest. I think Melania is probably like the least,
but I mean,
you know,
the
least annoying one of all.
The sheer gall to turn around and say that after being responsible for the death of 171 children. And that is, by the way, after there's obviously there is 5 of these. Israel and America are in occupy the top 5 single airstrikes that have killed the most children in the world. They're in the top 5. Hiroshima and Nagasaki being the top 2, and then we've got obviously what has happened in Yemen twice, and in 4th place is this one. I mean, this is freedom and democracy, James.
Okay, there were probably a few thousand kids that killed at Hamburg and at Dresden, but
Yeah, but not. No, I'm talking
I
about
mean,
in
yeah,
one
all right.
single
Look,
strike.
of course, it's hypocritical. And they have shot themselves in the foot, you know, by doing that. They make themselves look awful by doing that right on the first day of the war. So, but I don't think, but you know, I mean, I don't want to. It's not going to end.
No.
It's going to be it's going to be painful. It's going to be a horrible thing, right? They are going to keep hitting cities in Iran, and Iran is going to respond by hitting cities in Israel and in other countries. And you know, I really honestly think that people on both sides don't are that, you know, worked up about this, that they don't care. They don't care who gets killed now.
No.
And that's unfortunate. But it's, yeah, I mean, this was the first horror of the war. And it's not, but it's not going to be the last, you know?
No, I think you're, sadly, I think you're right. I'm going to ask you this question now. Let's get into, because this is to do with Trump. And of course, the feeling inside the United States seems to be changing. This is somebody who I can't stand, Nick Fuentes, but he does have a point here.
What we are told about the relationship between the U.S. and Israel is that they are our ally and that we are their patron and they are our client. We furnish them with $3.8 billion per year in military aid. Last year, the Congress authorized $26 billion. Forgive me, that was in 2024 in the spring. $25 billion in additional U.S. military aid for Israel. We furnish them with F-35s. We tolerate their nuclear program. We protect them in the international community from condemnation in the Security Council, from sanctions from European countries. And yet they seem to be able to act alone. Think about how warped this dynamic is. Netanyahu comes here and tells us how it's going to be. He comes here over and over. Well, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We. Who's we? You're our bitch. You take money from us. Like, we should own you. You wouldn't exist without us. You would have never existed in the first place. You could have never declared independence. There would have been no Zionist movement without American Jewry, without America's weapons. You'd have no nuclear arsenal. You wouldn't have won your war against the Arabs. You would have never won any of your wars for that matter. Your adversaries would still be standing. And they come to the White House and tell our president, hey, this is the way it's going to be. We're going in with you or without you.
And of course, we'll get on to the Lebanon thing in a minute. But of course, that was Nick Fuentes. Newsom, of course, you would expect to say.
And now we have Gulf allies that are being attacked. We have American planes that are literally being shot down by American allies.
So we'll get on to the fun and games of, do you really believe that the Q-80s knocked out 3 American F-15 jets all in the same day with friendly fire in a little while? But does Trump lose both houses, and is there a chance that they'll go
got more than 2 houses? I mean, he keeps Mar-a-Lago for starters.
No, the midterms, I mean.
I don't care. I just told you that it doesn't matter at all.
You don't think?
It does not matter. The Congress does not do anything. Right?
You don't think he'll get impeached then? If he loses both houses?
They already tried to do that twice and it didn't, and they failed. It doesn't work. One US president was impeached about almost 200 years ago or something. Right? And that's that. It's not the US has a terrible political system that was written by a man who thought democracy was a bad idea. And there is, you have you have a vice president, and the vice president's job is to take over if to take over if the president dies, because you have to have like a royal type succession, because it creates a constitutional crisis.
Or resigns like Nixon.
Whatever, yeah, but constitutional crisis, exactly. Nixon resigned; he wasn't impeached.
Yeah,
you know.
But they were about to impeach him. Yes.
I don't know. Were they? I mean,
yeah, they were. Yeah, they passed.
I don't know. They probably weren't. They probably weren't. It's not really possible. Like changing the constitution is not possible. It is not possible. You have to get every the state governments, which are the actual governments of the USA, right, to both houses, because each one has a House of Representatives and a Senate. You have to get them to vote by, a 3/4 supermajority, all of them, both houses of every state, each of the 50 states, to approve a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, I mean, Nixon resigned.
It's not happening unless there's absolute unanimity, and they're not going to change that. They're not going to change the Roosevelt rule, as they call it, the anti-Roosevelt rule, because they didn't like.
Yeah.
Roosevelt
Nixon resigned just before they came to the vote.
Yeah.
He resigned.
Right. So what does Fuentes say? Fuentes is making the mistake of thinking that Israel is an independent country, and it has normal relations with it has like relations with the US like another country, like Britain has with the US. No.
Yeah.
Israel is a colony of the US. It's the same thing. It's like, like the idea that, say, I don't know, honestly, is Canada or Australia or New Zealand or any of those independent countries from Britain, really, because they have the same head of state, or, is the Falkland Islands with its autonomy, or Jersey and Guernsey, are they independent countries, and that we have this, this dynamic where we're sort of arguing with them and we're giving them stuff and they're not being generous or something. No, we're not giving them anything. USA is not giving gifts to Israel. The US is, the US is arming the extension of its armed forces, which is called the Israeli Defense Forces, right? It's just part of US defense spending. And they are not, that's that,
Okay.
And it's the idea that what anyone has said, what is it Marco Rubio said? He said, oh, they were going to attack, so we had to join in, or something, as if the decision was, as if Israel is bouncing the US into this, when the US had already built up all its forces.
Okay, let's have a listen to what
building up forces in the air region to fight this war.
Let's have a listen to the two things he did say.
They are producing, by some estimates, over 100 of these missiles a month. Compare that to the 6 or 7 interceptors that can be built a month. They can build 100 of these a month, not to mention the thousands of one-way attack drones that they also have.
So there's that, and he also had this to say, which I thought was very interesting as well.
The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's 2 reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true, because in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned.
So we got him there. I don't know whether you spotted the deliberate mistake. If Iran were attacked, it's almost as though Rubio is saying, well, they've no right to respond if their own country's attacked.
Look, I think he's admitting that the killing of the Grand Ayatollah and the defense minister and the head of the Revolutionary Guards were pointless, because they knew that the missile forces and other forces would already had orders and would go into action. right? So he's admitting that. And he's also apparently admitting that Iran can produce more missiles, or it can produce missiles faster than the USA can produce missiles that shoot them down, right? So you're onto a loser there. Unless they could just, they can hit all the factories that make them or something. But I think probably they're buried underneath mountains. And so, he's being refreshingly honest there. It's quite enlightening, really.
Yeah. But let's get into a little bit of this then, because this for me is a bit of a montage of stupidity.
And we may have casualties. That often happens in war.
I don't know if this is technically a war.
We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it.
This isn't a war. We haven't declared war.
The Secretary of Defense, who calls himself the Secretary of War, said today this is a war.
We set the terms of this war, from start to finish.
Nobody should classify this as war. It is combat operations.
War is hell, and always will be.
Strategic strikes are not war.
There we go. We're not quite sure if it's a war or a special military operation.
A strike is what you do when you want more money at work, You got to stop using this jargon. The many things are acts of. Many things that they've been doing to Iran for years and decades are acts of war, like sanctions. You see, so they have been at war with Iran for a long time.
They have.
And when this fighting ends, I'm not sure if there will be anything like real peace, No. I kind of doubt it.
Absolutely. Good call. There is this I want to get in the first hour and get James's talk on it. We broke the story that 6 CIA operatives and 2 were injured at the apartment. And as of 4 p.m. ET, March 2nd, 6 US service members have been killed in action. US forces recently recovered the remains of 2 previously unaccounted for service members from a facility that was struck during Iran's initial attacks in the region. Major combat operations continue. The identities of the fallen are being withheld until 24 hours after the next of kin. This is nothing to do with the normal soldiers. This is a CIA operative who had a few mates around his apartment block and they got absolutely pummeled. There are signs now of targeting from the Iranian side. They're obviously getting decent, or at least getting some intel coming through about where various people are, so that they can make surgical strikes of their own, James. I mean, there is 5 or 6
strikes, bombing. Just call it bombing.
Surgical. No. This is not a war, James.
Yeah. Look, apparently they have been putting up, like US soldiers and airmen and sailors who've been posted out to these bases in the Middle East have been put up at hotels.
Yes,
right?
Nice.
And obviously that's a security. You're not going to have any security because they're in the hotel. There's people coming and going in the hotel all the time, and then these Americans walking in and out, speaking English in an American accent, in uniform, right? Yes. And going up to their rooms. And there's so many people who work in the hotel, and any one of them could be, a spy or just a sympathizer or something. And
yes.
they just talk to other people outside work about, there's loads of Americans staying at the hotel now, and so you're not going to be able to keep that secret, and they're just going to, so
you're going to take some losses. Did it come as a shock?
Iran doesn't, at this point, the thing is existential for, it's like a question of survival for Iran. And do they really care about the optics, the bad image of hitting, a posh hotel in Dubai or somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Or Kuwait, and killing some civilians, basically killing the maids and the bellboys or whatever. and killing some holiday makers, and some influencers or whatever, if they also kill and injure some US troops and create a situation where the hotel possibly has to tell them to get out. You know.
Well, let me ask you a question on that then, because you mentioned, I'm going to let Lee Williams in after you've answered this question. You just mentioned their influencers. Now, here's where I would turn around and say this. Remember Charlie Hebdo, and of course what happened with obviously the cartoons and everything else. Are some of these influencers putting their heads above the parapet when it comes to, they're all online tub thumping? Iran are a bunch of butchers and all the rest of it, and some of the stuff they're posting is very provocative indeed. Is there a chance?
What, that they might get killed or something?
Yes,
might do, but they obviously think that
they're bulletproof.
No, they just think there isn't much of a risk or something. You know,
fair enough.
That's probably what they think. They probably think, yeah, it won't happen to me. You know,
yeah, that's what people always think.
Yeah, maybe, but like if they did, you'd see a lot of flights out of there or whatever. I don't know how they're going to get out of there because I think the airports are shut. And
they are. Yeah. There'll be a lot of people coming across on boats, James.
Yeah, maybe. Well, how do you get? But I think you're going to have to start paying like minibus drivers to drive you all the way across Saudi Arabia to Jordan and into Egypt, and then get out through Egypt or somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a mad it's going to be an exodus.
Can I say something about Kuwait and those planes?
I would like. Yes, I was just going to come on to that. Let me get Lee Williams's thought, and then I'm going to come to you about Kuwait because we're hearing something completely different.
I just want to add, because obviously it's a wake-up call to the world. How many people trust the United States corporation for the fact that every time they say it's a peace agreement, then it's inside a day to 2 days, that means there's an attack on that country? Has anybody worked that out yet?
Lee, everybody got it completely wrong. When they said that people were joining, when they turned around and said they're joining the border peace, what the Americans and Israelis actually meant was they are border peace. There you go. It's a very fine line distinction, but it needs to be done. Let's get on to the aircraft then. We have, obviously, we had good intel from our American sources. Kuwait air defences knocked out 3 F-15 jets in the same day, James Tweedy. Obviously, Aftab Ben Aftab got a little bit trigger happy and he basically blew 3 American F-15 jets out of the sky very close to the Iranian border. Your thoughts?
Well, Kuwait is not all that close to the Iranian border, and you could see those planes going down because there was video taken from Kuwait of those planes going down. So
there was.
Right. And then, US aircraft are not flying over Iran. They're launching missiles from
from a distance, yeah.
So they're also they're not taking any chances of getting shot down. So but the fact that the US has a base there has made Kuwait a target, and they hit the airport and they've hit other things. And Kuwait is not a big country. It's basically a city state. It's quite possible, it's this is very speculative, so take it with a huge pinch of salt. But what if they decided we just want the Americans to get out? We want the USA to get out because this is just too much trouble for us. So let's shoot down some of their planes, basically. Let's do it deliberately. Let's shoot down their planes. And then they'll get the message and they'll leave.
Yes.
And that's what I think is going on.
Yeah.
I don't think the Iranians shot them down because they were shot down over Kuwait. I don't think the identification friend or foe transponders on the US planes and the US surface to air missile systems.
We did look at
3 times. in a
No.
row in one day.
We're along the other way because it's only 427 miles between Iran, the Iran border, and Kuwait, and the Kuwaiti border. It is quite how can I put it? It's not a long distance in terms of if you want to fire missiles at planes, but it could be either or. Our people say differently. They are saying that what they are saying is that the Kuwait with the missiles. That knocked these planes out of the sky, that there's no way that Kuwait could have done it. So we'll have to see exactly what the score.
The F-15 is not. It's an old plane. It's a plane from the 1970s, and it was never designed to be stealthy. And you're coming back in. You're flying subsonically. That plane can fly at Mach 2 and 2.5. 2.5 times the speed of sound. If it is not carrying any weapons or external fuel, and therefore takes off, climbs very quickly, about 40,000 feet, levels off, accelerates to Mach 2.5, then cuts the engines and basically glides back to the airfield it just took off from. Right? If it's actually being used operationally, it's carrying 2 or 3 huge fuel tanks, and then whatever. Bombs, missiles, it's carrying for the mission, right? And it is not flying supersonically.
No.
It's flying subsonically, and it was coming back to land. It was cruising back, subsonically, totally right there on the radar. You just press the button and you shoot it down. And then they're not affected. They're not even expecting to be shot at. So
let me ask a question on top of that. Because the Arab states seem to have taken this very, very badly. I don't know why. They've got US bases there. Iran made it fairly clear that we're going to whack them. Are they suddenly, because they're tending to lose their minds and going, oh, no, we didn't expect this and everything else. Has this come as a huge shock? And if so, aren't they a bit dense?
About what? The shock about what? Sorry.
Well, they're in huge shock because this has suddenly, Iran have started bombing inside their country, the US bases, but Iran made it perfectly clear that was going to happen.
Okay. So they're guilty of hubris, right? They've been hubristic. They thought it wouldn't happen. They possibly thought that no US service people would get killed at all. Or something, or they were hoping that, and they possibly thought that nobody, because other people have got involved, like the popular mobilization units in Iraq apparently are getting involved, and Hezbollah, and next it's going to be the Yemeni armed forces, right? Are joining in on Iran's side, and they 10 years ago, when the US, led by Trump at the time, killed the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani, right?
Yes.
Iran responded by hitting a US base in Iraq, and it was everyone goes, oh, it was kind of like an agreed thing, and there wouldn't be any retaliation, and they told the Americans beforehand that it was coming, so everyone could take cover and nobody got killed and all that sort of thing. So, but they knew that they could actually do that. Now, I don't know what they're thinking, and in the 12-day war last year, they also successfully hit places in Israel, including in the center of Tel Aviv. So, it's either very hubristic or they were prepared to take all these losses, including the US was prepared to accept, Iran bombing Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Qatar and Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates, all of those countries, and Jordan maybe as well, and like hitting their oil fields and their airports and things. And But why does the US care? Hey, just let that happen. That's not their stuff. That they don't care about that. And possibly, like I said, it was intentional that oil production or oil exports from the Middle East would stop. That was their intention, because they must have known that would happen, and they went ahead.
Okay. Let's get into this then, because this is once again, shall we say, we called it. It was going to happen. Let's have a look. Let me just get the sound
the
up.
Iranian regime's military capabilities. We have focused on targeting ballistic missile launchers, command and control centers, underground bunkers, and of course, key Iranian regime leadership figures. Yesterday, Iran's main terrorist proxy, Hezbollah, launched dozens of rockets and UAVs from southern Lebanon at Israeli civilians in northern Israel. Our forces have been prepared to strengthen and protect all borders as part of this operation and are more than ready. We are preparing for the possibility of Hezbollah expanding their attacks against Israeli civilians. This includes reinforcing aerial defense systems and troops presence. Overnight, IDF troops were positioned in southern Lebanon at several points near the border area as part of an enhanced forward defense posture. Let me be clear. This is not a ground maneuver into Lebanon. It is a tactical step to create an additional layer of security for the residents of northern Israel. Let me remind you, on October 8th, the day after October 7th massacre, Hezbollah took control of vantage point near the northern border and fired RPGs and missiles indiscriminately towards Israeli civilians in the northern border. As a result, Israel had to evacuate around 60,000 civilians from their homes for many months. We will not let that happen again.
And of course, this all part of the Greater Israel Project for you, James. I mean, this seems very convenient.
That guy's supposed to. Who is that guy? He's like an Israeli army spokesman, right?
Yes, with a huge American accent.
Yeah, he's an American, right? They speak English with American accents, like Netanyahu is from Poland, but he speaks English.
Are there any Israelis in Israel?
I don't know. I mean, how do you define an Israeli, basically?
Yeah. Into Lebanon, then.
They are now fighting on the ground in Lebanon.
Yes.
So then that complicates things for them, right? And that's a problem. So now they've got to call people up, to from their civilian jobs into the army to fight the war again, and maybe it's going to start kicking off in Gaza because Hamas hasn't gone away, and so forth. So it's there it goes. Basically, it's all escalating in all sorts of different ways, and it's predictable, but it creates complications,
Yeah.
Then what's going to happen is the US going to start bombing Lebanon or something? Does that mean that diverts resources from bombing Iran? Is it going to start bombing Yemen? All this sort of thing. Is the USS Abraham Lincoln a bit too close to Yemen, or is it sailing off towards India? Who knows what's going on?
Yeah. Let's have a because there is this as well. Now, I found this absolutely hilarious. I'm going to lighten the mood a little here. This is Indian TV on the Pakistan-Afghanistan situation. Just, James, if you can, I'd like you to count in this 4-minute video how many times India mentioned Pakistan.
और इस समय की एक बड़ी खबर दें, ईरान की आईआरजीसी कमांडर का पाकिस्तान पर बड़ा आरोप, अमेरिका पाकिस्तान का एयर स्पेस यूज कर रहा है। ये ईरान के आईआरजीसी ने बड़ा दावा किया है, पाकिस्तान को इसकी कीमत चुकानी होगी, पाकिस्तानी मिसाइलों से नहीं बचेगा। आईआरजीसी इस्लामिक गार्ड्स पर पाकिस्तान आरोप लगाया गया है। ये बड़ा आरोप लगाया है ईरान ने पाकिस्तान के ऊपर कि अमेरिका जो है वो पाकिस्तान के बेस का इस्तेमाल कर रहा है। इससे क्या आने वाले समय में ये युद्ध और भी खतरनाक हो सकता है? क्या अब गल्फ देशों के अलावा पाकिस्तान भी ईरान के निशाने पर आ सकता है? आईआरजीसी का कहना है पाकिस्तान पाकिस्तान की कीमत चुकानी होगी। पाकिस्तान तो खुद ही तालिबानियों से लड़ रहा है इस समय। ऐसे में ये अब IRGC ने जो चेतावनी पाकिस्तान को जारी की है वो कहीं ना कहीं परेशानी का सबब पाकिस्तान के लिए, पाकिस्तान की आर्मी, पाकिस्तान की प्रशासन के लिए, उनके प्राइम मिनिस्टर के लिए। ईरान में मोसाद का ऑपरेशन इसलिए भी कामयाब हुआ क्योंकि पूरे मिडिल ईस्ट और अरब में एक देश छोड़ कोई ईरान का दोस्त नहीं। सब उसे या तो दुश्मन या प्रतिद्वंदी मानते हैं, और ये सब है तो मुस्लिम देश, कोई शिया बहु तो कोई सुन्नी बहु। लेकिन सबसे नाजुक मौके पर किसी ने भी खामेनेई का साथ नहीं दिया, बल्कि कुछ मुसलमान देश तो खामेनेई की हत्या की साजिश में भी साथ दिखाई दी।
ईरान के सुप्रीम लीडर अयातुल्लाह खामेनेई की मौत कैसे हुई, आज का आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस बस इतनी सी कल्पना कर सकता है। बिल्डिंग पर 30 बम गिरे, पूरी बिल्डिंग ध्वस्त हो गई और उसके साथ खाक में मिल गए खामेनेई समेत ईरान के टॉप लीडर्स। AI अगर किसी सीन की कल्पना नहीं कर सकता तो वो सीन है उस साजिश का जो खामेनेई को मारने के लिए महीने भर से रची जा रही थी। साजिश ऐसी कि जिसकी भनक होते हुए भी खामेनेई ने उसका भरोसा नहीं किया। सऊदी अरब, UAE, कतर, बहरीन, ओमान, इराक और जॉर्डन जैसे देशों ने न सिर्फ ईरान पर हमले के लिए एयरबेस का इस्तेमाल करने दिया, बल्कि कुछ देशों ने ट्रंप को हमले के लिए उकसाया भी। जिसे मुस्लिम दोस्त समझा वो खामेनेई का जानी दुश्मन। खामेनेई की हत्या की जो डिटेल अब अलग अलग वर्ल्ड रिपोर्ट से आई है, उसके मुताबिक ईरान पर हमले का दबाव सऊदी अरब के प्रधानमंत्री और क्राउन प्रिंस मोहम्मद बिन सलमान ने बनाया था। वो सलमान जो अरब जगत में MBS के नाम से जाने जाते हैं। रिपोर्ट के मुताबिक मोहम्मद बिन सलमान और
So let's get into the nuts and bolts of this.
Oh, it's horrible. do the people have like an attention span of 5 seconds?
Yeah. Yeah.
And why are you using AI? Do you not want to have a job anymore?
It is quite staggering.
No,
isn't it?
they just like AI imagining, how he died. They bombed his house. The roof collapsed on him or something, and he's dead. You don't have to imagine it. That's how people die. And I don't know, and they're obsessed with Pakistan. Of course, the Indians are obsessed with Pakistan, but this is probably like the worst TV channel in India or something.
It's the worst channel in history, I think. I had real qualms about playing it, but I decided I had to because they mentioned Pakistan so many times in the first minute. It was incredible. But it is. This is the sort of thing we're being subjected to around the world. And I wanted to sort of ask you a thing here, because obviously we sit here, we have chats, we're allowed to have an in-depth discussion. But are we to the point now where we're I mean, I could barely watch that. I mean, I literally, and I've even cut that short by a minute. I could barely watch that. But people actually watch. This channel actually gets 4.5 million views, James tweeted.
Okay. Is it broadcast or is it just on the internet?
It's broadcast. It's actually a broadcast.
Yeah, okay. I mean, 4 million in India that's got 1.25 billion people. But, the stuff that's going out on social media, I mean, they're always trying to do something stylistically with the writing, which is utterly horrible.
Yeah.
Unreadable, not writing proper sentences and things like that, And I often have to edit stuff like that. And I was like, why have you not written proper sentences? Where are all the articles and the pronouns in this thing, And anyway, where is the punctuation? But you've got a comma. Oh, you've got a comma instead of an and for some reason, but there's no full stop. Take it away and destroy and burn it. Anyway, so I just sort of, there's that kind of thing. It's really dumbing down, And there's this, I mean, it's possibly true that everyone is getting their news from apps on their mobile phone, right? But you can still write, if you know how to write for a newspaper, you can still write short, punchy sentences which have all the information in, proper sentences, but they contain all the information, and you tell the story in about 3 or 5 sentences of 25 words or less, and you're done, and that will all fit on a mobile phone screen, and you don't have to do it. But everyone is going for like all this clickbaity stuff, and there's so many people who so many different websites and channels that simply do not want to pay the small amount of money, the royalty feed for, to a photographic service to have real photos of something that have been taken by a real working photographer who's there.
Yeah.
And instead they just get AI to kind of generate an image, which is, which is full of weird things. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Not least hands with like 20 fingers, But anyway, it's terrible. It's where my profession is going. It's awful on your profession.
It's not good, is it? It's not good.
Yeah.
At least we get a chance to talk on here. There is something I do want to run by you here, James, because we've just had confirmation. I've just got an email. Northern Iraq, the US air base has been hit again. I'm going to read you this. I've just got confirmation, Warren, that 18 US soldiers are in hospital. Some are fighting for their very lives. It would seem as though that death toll is about to go up of US soldiers, James.
There's that place is it the one that's in Erbil?
It is, yeah. The one where they were storing, stupidly, where they were storing some of the rockets for the Patriot missile system.
Well, okay, they had to have the system there to defend it, I guess. But they maybe they felt that they were safe because Erbil is in the Kurdistan Autonomous Region. They call it, not Kurdish for some reason, but Kurdistan Autonomous Region, and the Kurdish separatists who run that place, great friends of the US and Israel. But there are, it is in Iraq. It's like, it's like assault on Precinct 13 or something, or Fort Apache or something. They could be right outside and just with a mortar, dropping mortar bombs down the mortar and hitting the base or something. So you have problems, and they can be hit directly from Iran as well. Iran can hit that place quite easily. It's not very far from the border with Iran. So, it's obviously going to be vulnerable. And they are
having already been hit.
There's a good chance that more US troops will get killed or injured because they are in a vulnerable place.
Having already been hit once, the idea that American troops went back there, and as he's saying, he's confirming that 18 soldiers are now in hospital, some of them fighting for their lives. Was that a bit stupid for them to go back in there?
Go back in where?
They were supposed to Erbil.
They were there already, weren't they? But I mean, the point is that they've got. Can they stay there? Is it possible that Iran or Iran's allies in Iraq can make it impossible for
them to be there?
For theirs to say that it becomes too much trouble. It's too they're getting hit too often and things like that. So those are your problems basically.
Okay. Give me your idea on this.
كبر زمجر اقترب الوعد بسقوط الشيطان الأكبر والرد محضر وتقرر يا جند الإسلام فهبوا بالموت الأحمر القائد كبر زمجر اقترب الوعد بسقوط الشيطان الأكبر والرد محضر فتقرر يا جند الإسلام فهبوا بالموت الأحمر يا جند المحور حيدر قد.
So the riots in Bahrain, James Tweedy, an uprising or just riots?
About 15 years ago, there was, during the so-called Arab Spring, there was an uprising there, an attempt to overthrow the government, and it was put down by troops from Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They went in there. But Bahrain is a place. It's off the eastern province. It's called that, of Saudi Arabia, which is where most of the people are Shiites.
Yes.
So there's lots of Shiites in Bahrain, and I don't want to get into that sectarian thing, but the Iranians most Iranians are Shiite Muslims as well, and they possibly, even without that raising that sectarian specter, there's possibly quite a lot of people all over the Middle East, who are ordinary people who are gonna say, well, I'm not with the Americans on this one. I'm definitely not with the Israelis. I support Iran on this one. And so it's not surprising that, you're seeing a few people throwing petrol bombs there, right? It's not surprising that there are protests and, in favor against the USA and in favor of Iran. And that there is the amount of rioting that you're seeing there,
Yeah.
What you want to look at is everybody marching through the street to the streets of the capital to the president, whatever the seat of government is there, to demand that they get out of the war, and kick the US out of the base there. That's what you might see.
Okay, let's get into this then, James, because I know what my stance is on this. Here's a part of a Garand drone apparently found by the British in Cyprus.
Όπως και τα κομμέτα στα Σαχέτ, η εταιρεία Tau Glass έχει γραφεία στην Ιρλανδία κάπου.
What's your thought on this whole drone into Akrotiri Air Base? First of all, it was a missile which turned out to be an irrigation pipe in Libya. And then, of course, it became a drone and they showed that, and there happened to be a drone that was hitting Haifa. We've not seen any real actual evidence, or nobody. We've got people in Cyprus who are turning around and saying they haven't heard a thing. There's nothing really happening there. Is this a false flag, or for you, or is this a genuine thing?
Okay, I couldn't tell what language that guy was speaking, so that's a mystery. But someone else could answer that. I mean, if he's speaking Israeli, it's probably Hebrew. I mean, if he's speaking Hebrew,
have we lost James or we lost me?
Sorry, can you?
Sorry, I can hear you now, James. I can hear you now.
Let's say if he's speaking Hebrew, it's in Israel. If he's speaking Greek, maybe it's in Cyprus, right? Yeah. And the allegation is that thing that says Kometa, which is the Russian for comet, is it's a Russian electronic component. Selling components, I mean, there is trade, but there are normal relations between Russia and Iran, and selling components is normal. In fact, they are selling arms to Iran. They are supplying arms to Iran. So it's not news, and if they use that component, it's just like the way that, Apple iPhones are full of Samsung parts, electronic components, and things like that. Or you buy any phone you buy here might have a Chinese microchip in it or something like that, even though we're not supposed to be buying Chinese electronics here anymore for some reason, right? So there's a thing. There are components. Electrical components are common things, and they are exported and imported, and they turn up all over the world, right? So it's not a big deal. It's not like Russia has attacked Britain, if that's, as some people might try and make that out to be. You see, I want to know what language that guy's speaking and where exactly that was. Let's say.
Yeah, it wasn't very clear, was it? But the
They
whole
could
thing.
have taken debris from a drone recovered in Ukraine.
Exactly.
I was wondering if he was speaking Ukrainian or Russision. They could have taken debris from a drone from there and filmed it, or taken it to Cyprus and filmed it in Cyprus, and said, oh look, a Russian drone hit Akrotiri.
Yeah, I've got to say, but we've actually got a really good friend of mine. He's right next to Akrotiri Air Base, and he's seen and heard absolutely nothing. Is this just an excuse for you, James, to get them into the war and publicly? I mean, they're already in it. It's just publicly now.
The upshot of it is that a Royal Navy destroyer has been sent to cruise off Cyprus and shoot down incoming things, whatever's, drones or missiles or whatever. And France and Greece have sent aircraft and ships. France has sent ships, I think aircraft too, and Greece has sent aircraft to Cyprus to also for the same reason. And it's generally the whole thing of it, like in the 12-day war last year, we are fighting in the war because we are shooting the, we're only doing it defensively. We're only shooting down Iranian missiles and drones. But no, we're that's what we're doing. We're helping Israel shoot down Iranian drones and missiles while they attack Iran and kill people there, right? So we are, we're making it easier for them to keep attacking Iran. So we are fighting the war, no doubt, right? Do not have any doubts about that.
Okay, Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, with all these aircraft that are flying into Akrotiri, they're obviously they're not on the runway. They're going to be sitting on the pans somewhere. And Akrotiri is quite a large size airbase, but it's not the biggest airbase in the world. I mean, Lakenheath is bigger. And Fairford is bigger. But the thing is, if they do get hit with something like an Oreshnik or a large missile, it's going to take out an awful lot of aircraft that are just sitting there because they're never, ever going to get off the ground in time, regardless of how much warning they've got.
I must admit, I'm completely along the lines of this is just a load of nonsense. From everybody I've spoken to, they've turned around and said, they've heard and seen nothing whatsoever. I've sort of like messaged about 8 or 9 people who really would know, including radar tracking stations and people who do heat maps and signatures and things like that. And they're saying that absolutely nothing's happened. But we will have to wait and see. For the moment, I'm of the opinion that is complete nonsense. Where the Hegseth has come out with this. Have a listen to this.
If you kill Americans, if you threaten Americans anywhere on earth, we will hunt you down without apology and without hesitation, and we will kill you.
So they're trying to now spin this as the reason for for bombing Iran in the first place, because they did chant death to America back in 2019.
Okay, I mean, what does he mean threaten? And who threatened?
It's a very loose term.
And again, there's a lot of stuff being said that Iran has somehow killed thousands of Americans and hundreds of British or something. And where does that come from? Are we talking about is this going back to this idea that Iran was responsible for all the guerrilla resistance against the British and the US and British occupation of Iraq?
Yeah.
That's Iran's fault. It's not the US fault for going in there and occupying the country for years, invading and occupying the country for years. And it's not Britain's fault for joining in. It's Iran's fault. Okay. And all that sort of thing. And then basically, essentially, anytime a bomb goes off anywhere in the Middle East, it's Iran's fault, because they're supportive of Hezbollah or something like that. So it's, that's one thing. Secondly, the idea that basically if you threaten Americans, they're going to, anywhere in the world, and they're going to come and kill you. I mean, like,
but Americans threaten everybody.
The UN Charter is out the window, isn't it? I mean, everyone knows.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not, like
it's just it's all on now, isn't it? Because I can't.
Just going to murder people for like being like saying, I don't like the Americans or something.
Dennis has got that about right. I think it's because there's so many rioters were American in Iran. Well said, Dennis. Louis Bastow.
That guy sounds like Liam Neeson. We will find you and we will kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know the movie. Liam Neeson always says that.
I think he thinks he's Clint Eastwood. Do you give this any credence whatsoever, James?
So it's probably hasn't been reported, but it's a fact that last night in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, authorities arrested Mossad agents planning on committing bombings in those countries. Now, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. Why would the Israelis be committing bombings in two Gulf countries, which are also being attacked by Iran? Aren't they on the same side? No. Israel wants to hurt Iran and Qatar and UAE and Saudi and Bahrain and Oman and Kuwait.
James.
Okay, so the various Gulf Cooperation Council countries, they're all threatening to attack Iran as well, join in basically in retaliation for Iran hitting their territory. Yeah. And including like, economic stuff, oil storage, oil refineries, oil, maybe oil terminals, ships and things like that. And Iran is saying, no, we didn't do that. That was Israel. So you can believe, you can make your own mind up about who you believe there. But, it would make a certain amount of sense for Israel to do that if they did do that, because then because the result might be that the Saudi Air Force starts bombing, joins in bombing Iran, and the Emirati Air Force and so on, and the Qatari Air Force, you see. And then it also offsets the political opposition to keeping the US bases in those countries. It would mean less of the protests that you see there in Bahrain, right?
Yeah, and we've also just by the way, we have some news that there has been a destruction of a THAAD missile system in the US Armed Forces in Al Ruwais base in the UAE, and that's been confirmed. So they're going to need a new one of those. I can't resist playing this again. I'm going to ask James the question. This is this channel's take on it, that the Americans have got a few weeks to get this done. If they don't, then Israel going to be in a bit of trouble. Here's ours. This is from an old Silk Cut advert back in the 70s.
A bit of a bash for the next fortnight. And that about how long you got.
Do you give them much longer than a few weeks to get this done, James?
Okay, I think there are some unknowns, right?
Okay.
Right. Like I said, do they actually want the oil exports to stop completely? Or, you know, and so if they do, then they'll just keep it going. It's helping them, you know. But, you know, it depends on how painful it gets. But I don't think they want it to go on. I think, you know, see in about a week or two where things are, who is still launching missiles and how many are getting through and so forth, right? And then we'll see, you know, who's winning the war, basically.
Okay. Let's get into this then. We've got a couple of people who want to speak. Andy.
I don't think Israel will exist in 10 days, the rate it's going.
Yeah, you think you think Israel will be fine, or not?
No, I think Israel won't exist in 10 days. The rate of fire, I think, is just going to be pummeled.
Okay, let's have a little look at this then. Here's a couple of shots from Tel Aviv. That was one late last night, and of course we've got another one for you from Tel Aviv. This. That was the ones that got through a few days ago. How much of and we're saying that Tel Aviv are running quite low on their missile systems for defence. Is Andy right? Is Tel Aviv and Israel in for a bit of a pounding? And going into Lebanon, they don't seem to be too concerned.
I think I'm not sure that second video is real.
Yeah.
I think it might be an AI fake. It's been posted today by Press TV, and they've been posting a lot of nonsense, like, you know, video game footage and things saying that, you know, it's a US plane being shot down.
Yeah.
The kind of thing that Ukrainians did about Russia, you know, 4 years ago. So I'm not sure about that. What I'm going to say is that you're going to know maybe in a couple of weeks, you're going to see where things are, you know, because last year they stopped it all after 12 days because it was becoming a problem, right? They were running out of missiles to shoot down, and they haven't given it enough time. Have they, you know, how far have they replaced their stockpiles? Because they're big missiles, they're big, complicated missiles, and they don't make them at a high rate. You know, the ones for the Arrow system and the David Sling system in Israel, and the ones for THAAD and the Standard, which is the one which is the RAM-6 Standard, which is on the US Navy destroyers, right? Those things, they're big and expensive, and they're producing them at a slow rate and stockpiling because they're not fighting wars, or they're not fighting high intensity long wars against countries like Russia or China. And so they're not geared up to producing large numbers of them like they're at war, you know. And so they possibly haven't replenished their stocks since then. So give it till, you know, not next weekend, but the weekend after next, and you might see what's going on. That's what I'm going to say. You're also going to see a huge amount of disinformation, you know.
Yes.
So
let's talk about it. Let's talk about Iran then, because Iran is, I mean, you've got the people who are coming out and they're very much in favor of. So they're all out in the streets while bombs are dropping. But America are bombing everything. Let's have a little look at this. And then, James, I'd like you to comment on how much of this pounding can Tehran take?
بشین بلند نشو شاید زخمی شده باشی بشین شاید استخوان شکستگی داشته باشی بشین الان نیروی امدادی‌ها رسیدن الان میان
بیا گل بزن بیا خلاص
بذار باشه بذار اینجا باشه چی شد اینجا چه جوری
بشین راحت میشیم زن بچه‌مون بشین اینجا اومدن
So is this going to strengthen, is it going to weaken Iranian resolve or strengthen it?
It's not about resolve. It's about, I think the risk for them is whether it creates a situation of anarchy, right? And then that report, if that report is true, you know, that that Rosatom shut down the Bushehr nuclear power station because it was dangerous and because they had lost contact with the Atomic Energy Authority, the Iranian Atomic Energy Authority, whatever it's called, right? Means that there's possibly anarchy. They're bombing police stations to create anarchy, to make the country ungovernable, you know, and in the hope that all the oppositionists, the royalists and the Mujahideen, Kalk, whatever they're called, will come out and onto the street, and you know, will start fighting the government, right?
Yeah.
So then the question is how much they're able to resist that, you know, to keep order, basically. So all those people who are protesting, are they going to be organized into militias to keep order, you know, in place of the police, so that the police can do more important things? See what I mean?
Yeah. So you think we won't know for another couple of weeks? Lee Williams.
I was going to say, so if anybody's interested, because I don't lie, I'm going to take you to a safe place. It's £99 there and back, and it's called Israel. So if it's not getting hit, then it's safe to go there. If there's anybody who wants a free there and a free return, please, I'll let you come. No problem.
Okay. Let's get into this. James has gone for a second. This, of course, is the UAE energy centres now starting to get hit. And they are starting to smash various areas to do with their energy. And then, of course, we've got this in Fujairah. I have no idea. People do that on videos. I have no idea why. Of course, they are starting to pummel these radar stations even more. And of course, this is Airfan, the US base, and they have knocked out 3 of the radar stations that are there. You can see them with X's on the map, and they are the golf ball type radar stations that, of course, everybody is turning around and saying that there's not going to be a problem. But there's going to be a massive problem in terms of the Houthis. The Houthis are saying that they're shutting off the Bab el-Mandeb Strait for the Suez Canal. James Tweedy, the Houthis haven't really, they're saying they haven't really got going yet, but they are warning anything that goes through that.
They could, I mean, yeah, they did that before. You know, they've shown that they can do that. Yeah, it creates another problem, you know, because it's already, I think Maersk, the Danish shipping company, which is a huge shipping company, you see their sea containers, you see them on the backs of lorries or on trains, right?
Yes.
All over the place, right? They say they are going to send their ships like they did a couple of years ago around, not through the Red Sea to the Suez Canal, but around the Cape of Good Hope, South Africa, and up the Atlantic, right? So everything takes longer and costs more, right? So they're already reacting to that by doing that. You see, we're back to that. So you know, the Yemenis have succeeded without firing a shot in that sense.
Yeah, it is quite crazy, isn't it? And some of the things that go in, you know, what's going on. Let's have a Lee Williams.
A quick one. The warship that America took over there, it's good for the plumbing devices to go for a number 2. Has it actually fired any weapons off yet? Has it actually said, we're actually using that yet? Or is it a case that they're scared to use it? I don't know.
I think it's mainly being used at the moment for defensive purposes, but we'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah.
It certainly, if it remains in the area, then it's a target. It's as simple as that. What did you make, James, about the Abraham Lincoln after the 4 missiles were fired at it and they didn't hit it? What do you make about the USS Abraham Lincoln steaming away?
Well, obviously that's what you have to do, isn't it? I mean, they said they fired ballistic missiles at it, and that's, unless you're like got someone, like a radar or someone with a some kind of guidance system correcting them, excuse me, guiding them onto the target. See, it's hard to hit a ship that's steaming at 30 knots, right? But then they fired 4 cruise missiles, like anti-shipping missiles, like the Harpoon missiles that the US uses, for instance, at them, and they didn't hit either. But obviously that puts it at risk, so it's got to sail away. So then it's at a greater distance from Iran, and if it's the missions take longer, and they if a plane is flying out to a launch point to fire a missile into Iran from out at sea, then it has to fly further there and further back, so it takes longer and it burns more fuel, and it needs more maintenance at the end of the mission. So that creates a complication. It's one missile lands on the deck of one of those carriers. They've always got a line of planes on the deck.
Yep.
They've been doing that since World War II. They carry more planes because they lash planes onto the deck and not have them in the hangar deck underneath, right? And that makes them vulnerable, because if they're hit, if they're full of fuel, they're like bombs, right?
Yeah.
And even if they've only got a little bit of fuel in the tank, it's going to be enough, like sitting in the bottom of the tank, to cause a fire, on the deck. And then the thing is, you've got an emergency, you get people being killed and injured, all sorts of damage being done, and probably you're going to have to, you'll have to withdraw. You're going to have to sail back somewhere and make repairs, and it's an emergency. So one hit on the deck of that thing is going to take it out of action, not necessarily, but put it out of action, and then
that's pretty much
they lose a big part of their firepower.
Yeah.
Let's
have a little look at this then.
Our sign says solidarity with Iran. You do know that there are Iranians right now that are celebrating what happened.
Oh, sure. There are monarchists that want the old corrupt system back of privilege, yes. But the Iranian Revolution, which called for nationalizing the oil and using it for the development of the whole country, that's what the U.S. wants back. That's what they want to reverse. They want to colonize every country of the world and do it at the point of a gun.
There's that. And of course, Trump, he's already doing this, by the way. He's just making it very public. Turning around, he's not against arming militias to overthrow Iran. Is he starting to? I mean, that sounds like a begging matter. But of course, they've already been doing that and tried to do that in the first thing. Is he under any? People are saying he's under enormous pressure. People are saying he's not under any pressure at all. What's your assessment?
You showed what's his face, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, criticizing this, and then Kamala Harris, I think a couple of days ago, said that she was against it or something. If they were in government, they're both from the Democratic Party, and if they were in government, they would be doing this, right? It's a long-standing plan, right? Yeah. So Trump is not under any pressure from anyone politically, and he wouldn't care if he was, because he's not going to be in government. He's not seeking re-election. He's not up for re-election, right? Yeah. I went to school with quite a few Iranians, and I knew one or two more at university. And they tend to be quite wealthy, you know, and they're all against the Islamic Republic. That's why they're here anyway, you know. So, you know, they come from they're wealthy people. They're the wealthy people from a wealthy country, and they left because of the Islamic Revolution. They didn't like that. They want the monarchy back. So you're going to have that here, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a no-brainer. And so they're you know, that's obvious, right? That one is obvious. It's not a surprise. But there are people who, you know, it doesn't matter from the point of view of we don't want to be involved. If there are people here and in the US who don't want to be involved in fighting this war, you know, they don't want their country fighting that war, right? And that's also fair enough, if you see what I mean. I've been in these conversations with Iraqis and Iranians who, you know, Iraqis who wanted the US occupation to continue because they were from a political party that, you know, they were suppressed under, you know, the Ba'athist government. And then if the US left, they felt that they would be in danger or something like that. And we, you know, and we said to them, well, you know, there was a you know, political thing. It was like, well, you know, but we don't want our troops fighting in that war, you know, basically, in your country. So the two things are not contradictory necessarily, you know?
Yeah. Well, we got 3 or 4 minutes left. I want to get your ideas on this because Lavrov has turned around and said that they're literally pushing Iran towards getting a nuclear weapon, and who can blame them? Have Russia started to shift their position on Iran having a nuclear weapon, or is that just Lavrov just having a basic sound off?
There's a few issues that, like, some people said that, you know, the Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader, was the one who issued the fatwa against nuclear weapons, but now he's dead. So, no, well, okay. The theological argument for that fatwa does not go away because he's dead, right? It doesn't invalidate it because he's dead. The practical argument is what are you going to do with the bomb? If you have the bomb, what are you going to do with it? Do you need it? Right? Does it stop anyone from, you know, would it stop this from happening necessarily? What would you do? Would you launch it at, you know, Tel Aviv, or, you know, drop it on Tel Aviv, or would you drop it on, you know, one of the US bases? You can't actually, they don't have a missile capable of hitting the US. So where do you fire it, you know? And all that, and just generally, all of the US demands to Iran were unreasonable for the simple reason that Iran is a signatory of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which says which is a commitment by them, because they've signed it, not to develop nuclear weapons, but in return for making that commitment, they can have peace. They can make peaceful use of nuclear energy. They can have nuclear power plants and enrich uranium and things like that. And the US is saying, no, you can't enrich uranium, and no, you can't have nuclear power, and blah, blah, blah. Right? So the US position was always unreasonable for that reason. Now, there are some maybe some people in Iran, in Iranian politics, will say, well, signing up to the Non-Proliferation Treaty didn't do us any good because the US is demanding that we can't, you know, telling us we can't have nuclear power, and then they're bombing us because we say because we asserted our right to that, and Israel is bombing us too, and so we must withdraw from it. But, you know, I mean, they may win this without the bomb, honestly. If they're still there when it's over, then they've won, and they win it without the bomb, and possibly the US. I mean, you know, they've definitely won if the US has to withdraw from some of its bases or all of its bases around Iran. And so, you know, what did they need the bomb for then?
Thank you very much for that. Couple of fun ones before we finish. A friend of mine on Iran sent me this. The absolute irony of you in the West. Their daughters are OnlyFans prostitutes. Your sons are being groomed in government schools to be homosexuals. Your society is a degeneristic, hedonistic hellhole. Your politicians are satanic pedophiles. Homelessness is everywhere. Crime everywhere. The country is being invaded by military male immigrants. Your economy is going down the drain, and your race and civilization is going extinct through population collapse. But hey, you've got to fix Iran first. And the other one, this one as well, Keir Starmer and Macron and Zelensky have had a meeting to discuss what their plans are moving forward. James, all joking aside, just one last question here. Zelensky's a big loser in this, isn't it? If they start transferring weapons that were meant to go to him over to the Middle East?
I don't know. He's trying to capitalize off it, you know, isn't he? He's trying to say, "Oh, we'll help you," you know, we'll help you shoot down the drones if you do this and that for us, blah blah blah. I don't know, you know, the US has already seems to have decided that that the war in Ukraine is a dead loss, and they're looking for a way out. But you know, they're not. They're not negotiating in good faith yet.
I have that song going through my head. Do you remember that ballad by Odyssey? If you're looking for a way out, you know, from the late 70s. It's almost
I don't remember that one. You know, the US hasn't been negotiating in good faith though. They're trying to keep things going. Maybe this will persuade them that they have to you know, and then that would be bad for Zelensky.
Time to nick off. James, where can people find you?
On Twitter. I hope they don't find me. No, on Twitter or X at LTweedy, ELTWEEDIE.
There we go. Go and find James. And if you agree or disagree with him, give him a follow, because he is a friend of the channel and he is here every week, a regular as clockwork, and we love having him here. James, thank you very much for your time this evening. It is time for us to go. So for the time being, it's goodbye from me.